in this class with 100 people present, they had to be over 50 years old. They'd almost all been parents of grown children, CEOs, managers of government, nonprofit, business, and professional units. I asked them these two questions. No one was willing to try to answer them. Number one, and these questions apply to society at large, not just to business or not just to government. What is the source of your claim on me? What is the source of my duty to you? Jack, you came closer than anyone I've heard speak with your last remarks to answering those questions. Would you care to inch a little farther?
Well, I tread lightly in articulating my beliefs. I don't believe in wearing my religion on my sleeve, but certainly whatever there is that we call God, exactly we don't know, obviously, is a good place to be. And I try and honor that. You know, we're also flawed. I almost hate to take a position on, you know, I can do this better than anybody else because I know I can't. You know, I kind of know how to make a life work decently well. We all are struck with balance between serving society, stuck with a balance between serving society, serving our careers, and serving our families. And I'm not sure any of us get it exactly right. I know I do not. And so I don't think I can go much further than to say that believe there's something bigger than you are out there.
Thank you very much for a good answer.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Bogle. My name is Sabrina Spar Lawrence. I went to Rosemont, and the only A I ever got was in business ethics, so I just want to share that here. And
nothing matter with that.
I don't even know what I'm going to ask. Last night I looked up the word capitalism, and it said something that I feel the capitalism is really about the society. The capitalists are the owners of the business, the corporations, and below that is the working class, period. So we work, since I don't own anything, we work for the corporations, which is fine. We all buy into that. My question is, I think it's interesting that there's millions of extremely intelligent people in the world that are willing to write a check to a corporation so that they can continue to be a corporation and pay the upper class, which is great, and we all support that, but it blows my mind how many people are into that. I don't know, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, let me say I've done a lot of work, and in my new book I've got a lot of ways to propose ways to solve the problem. But we have a very interesting capitalistic problem that shows the system going wrong, and that is the way we measure the success of our chief executives is basically what the stock does, which is absurd because it comes and goes, and on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, it's meaningless, absolutely meaningless. In the long run, it reflects the value of the corporation. There's no way around that. But in the short run, it affects all these expectations and emotions. So we pay these executives, we give them a free ride in stock options. It doesn't look like they're getting paid, but they are. And last year, they made something like an average of, I believe it was $14 million on average. I think the top guy made, I don't know, $300 million. Unbelievable. So how do you get corporate earnings to grow and your expectations to be met? You run a tough ship, if you want to look at it that way. You want to be very tough. You want to fire people, cut down the workforce, hold the lid on wages to the remainder, cut back on research and development, all the things that cut to the very heart of corporations. And yet, the more you cut down below, the more your earnings are and the more you make up above. It's a very perverse system, and compensation is a big part of it. It is a useful incentive, I guess, for an awful lot of people. And it's not just compensation, but it's competitive compensation. Your board of directors looks at you and they say, you're doing a much better job than the board of somebody else's president, so we better they do this all by, interesting kind of thing, they do it all by like quartile. And if our CEO is in the bottom quartile in pay, we say, well, he's wonderful. We see him here all the time. He's doing this great job. Why don't we move him up to the second quartile? I don't usually quickly go to the first. And that means somebody else falls into the fourth quartile. And if you look at this ratchet process going onward and upward, that explains a lot of what's wrong in CEO pay. Warren Buffett calls the names of these compensation consultants, the name of the firm is Ratchet, and Bingo. So the compensation committee is at the heart of this. And I have a bunch of solutions proposed in the book that I'm not waiting for anybody to adopt, because the compensation consultant is in a business and is selling consulting services. And I'm not sure any consultant has ever made a living by cutting people's salaries at the top. I mean, you just don't do that. You wouldn't have any clients left. Talk about there are only two kinds of clients we don't want to offend, actual and potential. It's true of the accounting business, it's true of the consulting business, it's true of the compensation consulting business. So it's going to be an intractable thing. I mean, one of the things we might do is have another set of little boxes and quartiles. And if the chief executive is in the fourth quartile and his corporate accomplishment, however measured, is in the fourth quartile, that's it. We don't talk about it anymore. That's where he stays. But to get those quartiles to stop rising year after year after year as they do is really just people understanding what a foolish system it is. And I beat everybody over the head with it. And so far, to no avail. Yet.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bogle.
Hi, Mr. Bogle. My name is Mike Binkley, and as a Vanguard shareholder and a Vanguard crew member, I wanted to ask you your perspective on Vanguard's growth from a very small company to a very large company, and how you think at Vanguard and other corporations and companies that have grown from a profession to a larger business, how we can continue to keep those ethical values as a part of the company while it grows very large.
Well, first let me say that's the right question. And let me just divide Vanguard into two sections. One is the human side and one is the investment side. And the investment side shouldn't really be much of a problem for us as long as the shareholders know what they want to know what they want to buy. If they want to buy the stock market and buy the stock market index fund, we really can't let them down. There's no magic way that we can make them go up when the market goes down or go down when the market goes up. So the investment side, even at this awesome asset total, and a binding, ties you to the ground like Gulliver, as I mentioned. If you were doing active management, you can't. So, there are going to be problems along the way. If there's a big liquidity run, particularly municipal bond area, that's not as liquid a market as the stock market. So it's not as if it's easy and a lead pipe cinch, but it's something that I think is controlled. The human side is different. And I don't, thank God, have to find the answer to the question because I don't work there anymore. But just to give you a few reflections, I talk to all of our Award for Excellence winners. We have an award program I put in back in the early 80s, I think. The title of it is Even One Person Can Make a Difference. And I still spend about an hour with each of those winners. And we talk about things generally, not kind of witch-hunting talk or not complaining talk, but just about things like you're asking. And I try and explain the reality that when you're 28 people, coming back to that phrase I mentioned earlier, which I'm very pleased with, for God's sake, keep Vanguard a place where judgment has at least a fighting chance over process. With 28 people, you can be pretty much all judgment and no process. But when you get to, 100,000, you're going to be awfully close to all process and no judgment. So the slope, that depends on your size. And, if the management wants to keep fighting bureaucracy, that balance is going to be, say, here's all process, here's all judgment, here's all process. And the management can hold it to here if it hates process. And if it loves process, process is going to be out there. So, it may sound very corny and simple to you, but the first rule is hate process. Try and stay in touch with people. Be around. Look people in the eye. Smile. Say thank you. It's the first rule of what you do in a corporation, I think, and I don't hear enough people saying thank you these days. So express your appreciation and from everybody. And I frankly spend a lot more time. Well, I obviously have nothing to do with the management anymore, but I spend some of my most enjoyable hours with people who are working their way up at Vanguard. And I got I have an awful lot of contacts with our crew members. And so I do my part, but of course I don't have to run the darn company. So I've got time to do it if I just stop writing books. Which, by the way, where is Eve? I am not going to write another book. This is my last book. So it's really just a matter of knowing what the struggle is and getting the priorities in the right place. And it is not easy, although I do take some heart from the fact that we had, I believe, when we were 800 billion, about half of our present size, we had 12,000 crew members. And because of what we do in technology, do a very, very good job there in communications. And maybe people are just learning more about the firm as they stay with us longer. But we've gone from 800 billion to $1.6 trillion, and still with approximately 12,000 crew members. In other words, the size of the company has doubled, but the number of the crew members is probably up from, I don't know, 12,000 to maybe 13,000. And to the extent we can do that, we can help a lot to keep it a human place. I don't think this much happens anymore, but years and years and years ago, I mean, I've been worried about Vanguard growing too big almost from the day, once we got over the hurdles the first few years, almost from the very beginning. But I went to a professor at Harvard Business School, strategy, he knew strategy. And I said, give me some strategies for slowing the firm's growth. Give me some strategies. He looked at me like I was nuts. So I think you just do your best under the circumstances. It's not an easy thing to do. Awareness is the first step. And then making sure you act the way you talk, as I mentioned during my talk. And I think all that together is not going to solve the problem, but will give you a fighting chance to solve the problem. I wish I could offer more.
Thanks for your perspective.
Good morning, Mr. Bogle. My name is Bob Edmiston. I first want to thank you for being a hero to people like me who want to change the industry and business itself from the inside here. My question is going to be about structure of the investment industry and specifically the investment advisory industry. And I'll give you a little bit of background. I'm a former crew member, and I traveled around the country for about 5 years talking to 401k investors about how much to save and what the proper mix of stocks and bonds is. And I think this country needs advice in terms of the financial, in terms of engaging the investment marketplace. But the investment advisory industry is completely conflicted, in my opinion. And the reason we need advice is because we need to be honest with ourselves and understand the fact that most of us don't have a process for investing, and we simply chase performance or invest in conjecture. So in terms of the investment advisory business, what's the way forward so that we're not both paying financial paying the financial product, or being, so that advisors aren't both being paid by the financial products industry for the financial products that they'll sell, and being paid by you, the client, to give you advice on what financial products to own. It's a clear conflict of interest. So I'd be interested to understand how you would instruct us to get investment advice, whether it's...
Okay, well, let me say a couple of things. One, the great wave among investment advisors is fee-only investment advisors. They don't take commissions on anything. They don't take payolas. They don't take kickbacks. You pay them. You, the client, pay them. And that's the model. Will be the only model, well, almost the only model someday. It's probably, I don't know if the number is maybe 50 or 60% today, but something like that. Do it that way. And that's a responsible business. What is the business is the more interesting question, and that is, what we've done is confuse everybody. They're watching the stock market every minute, and they're listening to tips from their friends and brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law and everybody else, and acting on those tips. And so when they go to a financial advisor, he really basically keeps them in the same system. And I'll give you just a little anecdote about this. I was speaking out in Minneapolis a few years ago, and I presented this picture of just asset allocation, depending on your age. Half of the money in the stock market, more if you're younger, less if you're older, and the remainder in the bond market. 2 index funds is all you need. And we're doing a lot of this in the industry now in target date funds, that kind of thing. So he said, well, look, he said, I know you're right, but I've got clients out there. And they come to me, I say, do that, half and half. And then they come to me after a year and say, what do I do now? And I say, nothing. And then they come to me a year later. I said, now it's got to be time to do something. No, do nothing. Stay the course. And they say, well, all right. And then a year later they come to me. I said, now, come on, it's been 3 years. Now there must be something I can do. And he said, nope, do nothing. And the client looks at him and says, why do I need you? And I said, well, there's an easy answer to that question, I said to this investment advisor. You need me to keep you from doing anything. And that happens to be the best strategy. And it's simple, and it works. There's no, we're all competing with each other to be better. And there's no Lake Wobegon out in the stock market, so we're all worse. And that's why, as I think I mentioned in my remarks, you're getting precisely what you don't pay for. So the advisor, firstly, the advisor I think should be spending much more time on the complexities of the way our system works. For example, IRA, Roth or regular, taking down out of your regular account or taking down your retirement account. All those kind of little things, should you have municipal bonds or taxable bonds. That's all very useful for people to get. But the advisor, I mean, I would not trust an advisor, honestly, who said, my big thing I'm going to do for you is I know how to pick funds better than anybody else, and I can pick all the winners. I got my hand over the wallet already before I walk out the door. So I think it's sticking with the simplicity, getting the right message, but eliminating that conflict about which you spoke, and it's gradually being eliminated.
Okay. It's great to see you, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. I've been reading some research about ethics and how business schools now, many of them are beginning to overhaul their curriculum to place a greater emphasis on ethics in light of what's happened with the recession, in light of some of the ethical lapses that we've seen. What do you think that business schools need to be teaching MBAs as it relates to ethics? And do you have any concerns that this is a trend, or do you believe that this is really a paradigm shift that we're experiencing?
Okay, well, the question which you heard is, I probably should have repeated the other ones too, is about the role of ethics courses in schools, and particularly business schools. And I'm somewhat conflicted by that. I believe they should absolutely do it, but I'm not sure how much good it will do. And if you think about what a business school is all about, it comes down to, like so many aspects of our lives, it's attracting students. If they don't get new students every year, they go out of, business. So they're trying to respond to a perceived societal need for ethical courses. It's not, if only giving ethical courses would make us more ethical, I would be all for it. They do raise very important and profound issues. But unfortunately, this is not a great idea for the future of our society. Ethics, I believe, profoundly begins at home. And tough parents, tougher grandparents, and not just hectoring and lecturing you all the time, but who live what they do, who walk the talk they talk. Young kids are very impressionable. I don't tell that to anybody in the room. And they observe what you're doing much more than they will ever observe what you were saying. So bring them up right, and that's no mean challenge in a society where our family unit is, or appears to be at least, eroding over time. But, I mean, it's like almost every other message we have to think about. And that is, just keep pounding, keep doing, keep striving, keep the mission going, and never lose sight of your own role in it and the proper way to behave and the right things to do. And eventually we'll make some kind of a dent in all this. I hope I'll still on while I'm still alive, but maybe a small bit. Okay, thank you all very, very much.